What's going on, y'all? Jordan, another episode of Lightning Latest. We're starting the week off strong. It's going to be a pretty fun one. We're going to talk about the rest of the offense today, break that down a little more. It's the final spot of our preseason preview, actually, for the positions, so that's going to be fun. We're also going to discuss Sam O'Reilly as well. He was a return for I Coward, a preseason preview against the Hurricanes, because we're 1 week out. We're so close. Oh, it's going to be great. And another what if, of course. I'm going to finish off with that one. But first, let's take a look at the offense. Let's break this down. Talked about the first three lines over the last couple days. Ended last week with, the third line preview. Fourth line's looking better than it did last year, right? That was the goal with signing, Pontus Holmberg, Jacob Pelletier, re-signing Goncalves, re-signing Gord, right? Keeping that depth, building that depth. It's the only way we're going to get past, the Panthers of the world. We have to have a deeper team. So by doing that, that's great. Right now, the fourth line's looking at the moment as we enter training camp. Holmberg on the left, Gergensen's at center, and Connor Geekie on the right wing. You already know I love the Geekie one. That's fine. Connor's going to do his thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about him. But really excited to see what he can do on a full-time slate. Depth includes Pelletier, right? I think it's going to be between him and Holmberg for that left wing spot. And then Mitchell Shaffey as well on the right. But Pelletier can play both ways. He can play left wing and center. So should help quite a bit with our depth. Now, like I said, right, left wing, probably going to be a battle between Pelletier and Holmberg. It's just, that's how it's looking. Both of them are in their 20s. Pretty savvy pickups, I think, from Brevoy, especially if one of them works out great. Holmberg's under a 2-year deal. Pelletier is 3 years. So if one can't gain an advantage over the other to start off, I think Coop will probably rotate him in and out. We're preseason now a week away. We got training camp coming up too. We're in the middle of that. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much these rotations happen. I think long term, I like Pelletier's odds more than Holmberg's, but they both can pitch in. That's awesome. Chaffee's actually probably going to spell Geeky quite a bit in the early going, at least. Like, they're going to almost, I feel like, switch on and off too, because we have to see if Chaffee's worth anything after this season, because he's going to be a free agent next year. I think personally he'll be let go, but you never know. He could have a great season and Geeky can not even break through. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Geeky's going to, really take that next step. If he takes that next step the way that team management thinks they will, he will. He could be on the third line by the end of the year. Like, it just depends. If Goncalves doesn't, develop the way many people thought, then it's possible. Gergensen's is a decent fourth line center, but I mean, we could improve upon him. Would a trade boost that position? Yeah, it's certainly possible. Also possible is Pelletier playing center, though, because he can do that, and a fourth line of him, Holmberg, and Geeky would actually be kind of fun, because they're all young, especially Geeky, obviously. We talked about him a couple days ago, but, that's what you want, right? We're trying, once again, next wave of talent, next wave of contending Lightning core. That's what we want, and both of these guys could be that if they're given the proper coaching and playing time. So we'll see what happens. I'm really excited for this fourth line, because it's got a lot of young talent. It's unproven, but it could be something more, and that's what we want. Speaking of unproven talent, though, Sam O'Reilly. According to The Athletic, he is the Bolts number 3 prospect. Okay, so he's also projected to play NHL games like Ziata. That's what Corey Pronman said. No below average attributes, according to Pronman, which is, what you want to see, right? Above average competitor. Played both the penalty kill and the power play for London last year when he played with them. So probably going to be a bottom 6-4, maybe a fourth line center just like Ziata was, but that's okay, right? Because we need to build those lines. And Isaac Howard, of course, he's brought in that trade. We'll see how it happens. The biggest problem with Howard is that I don't understand. I guess it was from a money standpoint, really. They traded him because he wanted to play immediately. We just didn't have the room and or money to do that. So I just would have liked to have seen that. But Sam O'Reilly could be, he could be better. We don't know. If Howard does outplay him in the long run, then people will probably see this trade as unfavorable to Breboy in the front office, and that's rightfully so. But we still have to see how O'Reilly does in our system this year. If he can play well and climb up the ladder, maybe even get to the NHL, who knows, right? Howard's probably going to play a role with Edmonton, from the start at some point. But I'm sure we'll talk about him again at some point this year. But now, we are so close. We are so close. 1 week. We are 1 week away. 1 week. Ugh. Preseason opener against the Hurricanes. They were the Eastern Conference opponent for the Panthers, and Eastern Conference final opponent for the Panthers. They lost in 5 games, like we did in the first round. Second in the Metro Division last year, so they didn't even win the Metro Division. They had 99 points. The Capitals won it with 111. So, they weren't expected to be the Eastern Conference Finals again, but they made it, and that's what matters, right? They didn't even make it past the second round in 2023, 2024, so last season was an obvious improvement. If the Bolts want to get back to the Stanley Cup final, if they want to even get back to the Eastern Conference final, they're going to have to deal with the Hurricanes. Probably at some point, if I had to take a guess. There's certainly a chance they'll have to play them in the playoffs. They're going to play them a few times throughout the year, we already know, but there's a chance that could happen. I'm not sold on the Canes as much as everybody else, but they are still looking very deep. The GM, Eric Tolsky, he signed Nikolaj Ehlers. It's Ehlers, I think. So a 6-year deal this offseason. If I'm wrong, somebody will tell me, I'm sure. Ehlers will team up with Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis on the projected first line. So that's, a pretty solid first line. I don't believe it's quite as good as ours, but it's still a very potent first line. And if you underestimate them, that's any problem. I think the weak link at this point is the goalie tandem, right? Frederik Andersen's not getting any younger. He's still playing pretty solid, but I feel like the goalies are kind of let the Hurricanes down against the Panthers. Pyotr Kochetkov, yeah. He is a youngster, right? He's coming up. The hope is going to be the long-term number one there. It's probably going to be pretty close to a true 1A, 1B possibility for them. I think it's really going to be... I'm hoping Anderson a little more because he's older. And because if Kochetkov takes over that number one spot, that means he's really improving this year and he could be a problem. But it's interesting to see who they're going to even start in the preseason opener. Also interested to see just how the lines look if that first line is indeed Ehlers, Aho, and Jarvis, which I believe it will be. Based on projections, that's how it's looking. But, everyone's starting training camp this coming week and doing a bunch of different things, so we'll see. That being said, I'm really excited for this preseason opener because, it's going to be a good barometer to see where we stand up against other Eastern Conference contenders, right? The Hurricanes are going to play them twice. We're going to play the Panthers 3 times, which we'll talk about them in a few days as well. We're going to play the Predators as well a couple times. Even though they're not they could be. They could be a contender out west. It's possible. But, we'll see. The preseason is going to be a really good barometer of just where we're going to be. So I'm really excited to see what line changes happen, how the goalies are going to look, how Johansson's going to look for us. So probably play a lot of the reps in the preseason. It's going to be tough. 5 games against the Hurricanes and Panthers and 7 preseason matchups is, a really good way to see just how well we're doing. So, I'm cautiously optimistic for next week. Let's just say that. But there is a way we could get better. Of course, we've been talking about our what ifs. going to talk about another Vegas Golden Knight today, William Karlsson. Like Mark Stone on Friday, little overpriced. Let's be honest, little overpriced, but 5.9 million a year next 2 years. He's already 33, so he'll be a UFA in 2027 like Stone. Injuries have been a concern. They've always been a concern with William Karlsson, especially over the last few years. And he can only really probably fill a third or fourth line role with us. If he can stay healthy and play at least 65, 70 games, I believe it'd be worth it. I believe it would be worth it. But I just don't know if he'll be able to do that. So would it be worth $5.9 million for the next 2 years if he doesn't stay healthy? If he doesn't play, 65, 70 games. Depends on the cap. It depends on a lot of different things. Right? We talked about building up the depth in those deeper lines. Karlsson would do that. But remember, cap is rising. Cap's rising. It's going to be projected to be $108 million next year. Okay? Wouldn't the money be better spent elsewhere, like on a Mark Stone? Even at $9.5 million a year, and he's the same age as Karlsson, he's still healthier and he produces more. Or I'd prefer Luke Hughes, because Hughes is going to be a pretty important piece wherever he plays for the next few years. I've got a lot of faith in his potential. Remember we talked about yesterday, right? The Knights fall out of the playoff race. Karlsson could be one of several vets dealt by Kelly McCrimmon. He might just decide to gut it and say, we're moving on. Like Mark Stone, like others. So, as a potential trade deadline piece, if Karlsson's healthy, he'd provide a boost. A definite boost to, probably the third line, I would take a guess. We need more offensive punch. We've been talking about that, hollering about it all summer. We're going to continue to holler about it until we see it. Because that's going to help bring us forward. Tomorrow's going to be fun. We got a lot of things we're going to break down. We're going to discuss the remaining free agents. We're going to dive back into them and see who could really help. Also, the future of the Lightning goaltending situation. Which, Vasi's 31. We talked about that a few times already. We got to see maybe if there's anyone in our system worth replacing him. A few other things as well. We're going to talk about the Preds. Break down that matchup. Really excited for tomorrow's Lightning latest. So I'll see you guys then. This is Jordan. I'll see you guys later.